right? So again, the question's got to be framed innocuously to say, you know, what do you mean by this thing? It's not clear from your submission. Somebody said in the workshop yesterday, oh, what about, do some organisations not clarify? And I said, yeah, I've known some people, government people, for example, that say, you all get the same information. If you put in your bid gobbledygook, I'm not going to come back to you. It is what it is, and I'm going to assess it as it is. I don't subscribe to that view. I think that if you have an oversight or something in your wording, but it doesn't make sense to us, then it's perfectly fine to clarify that. It's just that everything has to be done in writing, so there's a trail, an audit trail of exactly what happened. Any questions about clarifications? All good? All nice and quiet now. We also talk about negotiation, and the tender document actually states whether negotiations could be something that happens. It also states that we may award no contract and we may award to other than the lowest bidder. Obviously it all makes sense. So the shortlisted providers may be asked to renegotiate something with them. Could be price related, but really honestly most of the time it's probably not. It's probably related to how you deliver a service or the quantity you look at or whatever it might be. And in many cases there's no negotiation, it's just, yep, let's sign the contract. Right? So, but I just wanted to point out that there is an option there to do that. Negotiation, and I teach a lot of contract law, so the thing is that a negotiation, both parties have equal rights, so never forget that. If one party wants to negotiate, so can the other. Right? So that's quite normal practice, of course, in contracts. So, and again, you can only do what you can do, of course. So, once agreement's been reached and it's in the bag, then the unsuccessful providers are notified. And let's face it, with that current tender, there's going to be providers who are going to miss out on funding. Money only goes so far. And so we notify you, and you are able, of course, to get some feedback. The question sometimes for PHC might be, how do we do the feedback? Is it by phone call or email, or do we have a meeting? But going back to the example I gave of 132 responses, are they going to have 131 meetings? No. So what the tender document in their case actually stated that only shortlisted providers will be given an opportunity for a meeting. The rest will be done probably by email or whatever it might be. I'm not sure if you have a particular viewpoint on that, Julia?
If anybody wants a debrief, they can request a debrief.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyone can request a debrief if you wanted to. Final contract discussions then take place, and I want to talk about, well, what sort of discussions will we have? And one of the things that they will look at is, of course, do you understand the contract, which I'll come back to, but how are we going to measure how effective your services are going to be? And maybe in the past wasn't always done quite as well as it should have been done, but of course, if you say, if we get the funding, we can deliver 20 services a week, then you have to be held accountable for that. Because again, PHT are held accountable to the government, right? So, so whether we sit down monthly or quarterly or whatever, on what basis, right? Have you actually delivered? And with a KPI, most of them are quantitative, the number of or the percentage of. And most of them can be that way, but not all. I gave the example this morning where I did some work for Salvation Army. Anybody here from Salvos? No? We had this morning in Melbourne, and we did some KPI stuff. And two guys said, we are both counsellors for prisoners. We go into the prisons, we counsel them with the aim, of course, of rehabilitation. So I said, okay, well, how many people do you counsel in a typical day? And one guy said 3, and the other one said 6. So which is better? Is 6 better than 3? Well, the person who did 3 said, but my interactions do take twice as long, but it's good quality. They get really good quality, consulting, counselling. The person who did 6 said, but there's nothing wrong with my counselling. Mine are also very good. I just happen to get through 6 in a day. So which one's better? Is it the quality or is it the quantity? And of course, what I said, well, the issue is bigger and more longer term. So the person who does 3, do all 3 get rehabilitated compared to the 6 where only some of them get rehabilitated? And we don't know the answer to that question until some time down the track. But the thing with any KPIs is that whilst PHT may have some suggestions based on historical data, it's up to you to negotiate that with them. They're not going to force it on you. So you're going to say, well, we can do this or we can't do that, or it's not reasonable. And with KPIs, I often use the SMART acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-based. So it's got to meet all those things. Yes, there's got to be something we can measure, and the problem with qualitative things is it's hard to measure. And of course, it's got to be achievable. You know, PHT can't say, well, you say you can do 20, we want you to do 100. It's not achievable, forget it, right? So, and that's why you'll come back and say, 20, yeah, maybe we can do 25. So obviously, it's not as easy as all that. The point I want to make to you is that it's a discussion between the 2 parties. Right? So once we do that, we go through the contract. Of course, the contract is signed and no work is commenced until the ink is dry, which makes sense, of course. So I want to talk a little bit about the contract, and there's a draft contract in that pack, of course, that you download. My advice to you is to always look at it carefully, and only if you're happy, then you sign it. It's called draft because you may not be happy with some of it, and you'll discuss that and negotiate that. What I've been saying, look, I run a small business, and I'm a bit of a contract law guru. I run contract law classes. Have I ever signed a contract I'm not entirely happy with? And yes, I have. And why is the case? Because I'm not going to run out to get legal advice. It's too expensive, it takes too long. So to me, everything is a risk assessment. What is the chances of something going wrong here? And if they're very small, so what? So I'll sign it. Has anybody ever here built a house before? Yeah, I've built a few. And did you read the contract from bottom to top? You did. Very good. Because you're one of few people, I reckon, to do it. Most of us, and I did the first time, initial every page and sign the last one. Yep, there you go. Didn't read a thing. And if you actually read a building contract, it's got a liquidated damages clause in it. Now, I'm not going to bore you with what that means, because it's not a contract class, but the point is, had I known what that meant, I would have negotiated something different. Right? So the thing is, we do it all the time. Insurance contracts. When you fly on a plane, go to Virgin website or Qantas, blah, 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 tick here that you understand it all and you accept it. Who actually reads every word? Well, you might. I don't know. But yeah, and they've kind of got you, because if you don't tick the box, guess what? You don't fly. Easy, right? So obviously it is a risk assessment, but it is called a draft. The onus is on you to read it and to be sure that you're happy to sign that, of course, at the end of the day. By all means, get some legal advice. By all means, get someone to say, what does this clause actually mean? And you know, it's not a bad idea. But as I said, as someone who knows quite a bit about contract law, I don't even bother half the time. Most of the time I don't bother. I just sign it. And to be honest, I look at my history. Have I ever had anything go wrong? And the answer is no. And I've done hundreds of these things. So yeah, that's the sort of risk assessment you make. So having said that, that's basically the end of the presentation. But I want to open it up to some questions, and then before you go, you can always grab another coffee and a biscuit and do a bit of networking or discussion. So one question up there, yes?
With the negotiation, how you said that PHT has the sense to put
It could happen.
Okay.
I guess the thing that, and we've had this question about partnerships quite a few times, and I think PHT would encourage particularly smaller providers to look at how they deliver it. And is it better to offer a service in conjunction with another organisation? And I think that's really up to you to decide to have a look at. So when you submit, is it on your own or is it as a partnership, with somebody else? The other question that did come up, we might as well talk about, is if we do a joint bid with somebody else, do you want the financial data of both organisations? And what I had been told by someone from PHT is that basically it comes back to whoever receives the funding. If one organisation receives the funding, than the financial data